Coming to get you, Bobber.
Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be ranking the opening scenes in all of the Scream movies. Now, one of the reasons I want to do this is because when I was doing the ranking for it, it completely is different from the ranking for my Scream movies. So I think it made sense to do a video like this because some of the beginnings of some of these Scream movies don't really do the whole movie justice and vice versa. So I think it's only fair to rank the openings. And at number 5 is the opening for Scream 4. Now, as much as I enjoyed the meta look of that and the wittiness of it, I think it was a little bit too much. I think if they just made the movie within a movie, that might have been just enough for me to like it. But the fact that they've done a movie within a movie within a movie with us watching that, I think it was a little bit too much. It was easy to understand, but I think it was way too much. So by the time they got to the actual movie itself and the opening, I was already not invested in it because I was expecting it to either be a movie again or I just lost interest in the opening scene. And that's hard to do for a Scream movie, especially when it's Wes Craven that's directing it. Yes, we were back to the phone calls, etc. with the teenagers, which I did like, but at the same time, I just think it was maybe a little bit too much. And then number 4 is the opening for Scream 3. I've said this all along, anytime I talk about Scream 3 is the lack of teenagers in these movies. You know, you need the teenagers to make it a Scream movie, and when you've got an opening scene with just Cotton and his girlfriend, I don't know what it was. I think maybe it's because it was in Hollywood, it was the introduction to the new voice changer. None of that made sense to me, and I felt like the opening scene was too scattered because we had the scene with Cotton in his car and the scene with Christine in the house, so it took place in 2 different locations until they actually came together. And even when they came together, it was over in an instant. So I think it was possibly one of the shortest opening scenes in the Scream franchise. And then number 3 is an opening for Scream 2. I think it was a stark difference to what happened in Scream 1 because we were expecting, well, maybe not expecting because it was only the sequel, but I was expecting maybe a phone call. But I think this is possibly the only movie that didn't have a phone call at the beginning of it, and that's a welcome change, especially for a movie that was a direct sequel to the first one. So you can't really outdo what happened in the first one there. So it took place in a cinema with 2 famous actors as well. You had Mike Epps and you also had Jada Pinkett Smith. I think the introduction to Stab was really good as well because that was the first of the Stab movies. We weren't expecting too much to happen in terms of the Stab movies. Now we're on Stab 8, of course. But yeah, I think it was a welcome change to what happened in the first one. It can't really outdo it, so you might as well make it a little bit more different. And then number 2 is the opening of the new Scream movie, Scream 5. I think, obviously, this is the only movie that there was a survivor at the beginning. You know, I didn't expect that to happen. From the trailers, it looked like she was a goner, and even from the movie, it looked like she was a goner as well, but Tara survived. So that was quite a welcome change that we had a survivor. Obviously there was a reason for that, but at the same time, even though she survived, I felt like the opening scene was probably the most brutal out of all the opening scenes in all the Scream movies. Even though she didn't die, the way she was attacked, the way she had to defend herself, it was really well done. Probably joint first and second, or joint first for the scariest opening scene. I think it was quite scary, especially after you see the opening for Scream 4 and then the opening for Scream 3. You're thinking, is it just going to keep going downhill? No, it doesn't. I think this was back to form for the Scream franchise. Obviously it wasn't the best opening for me, but it wasn't far off. And at number 1 is of course the opening for Scream 1. This is one where we didn't know what to expect. You know, I expected Drew Barrymore to be the star of this movie, and I know that most of you who watched it for the first time back in the 90s expected Drew Barrymore to be the star of this movie. She was on the front cover of the poster, she was in the trailers, she was all over it. Now I don't know if that's a bit of both, because she was probably the most famous person at the time, mixed in with Wes Craven being Wes Craven. He wants you to believe something's going to happen and it doesn't happen. So the opening scene was amazing. It was a horror fan's dream as well, because it was one of the first movies I watched where they mentioned so many horror movies in the first scene, and I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm connecting with these characters before I even know who they are, because they know what I know. I know what they know, it's great. And then to find out that Drew Barrymore, Casey Becker, dies at the beginning, you're like, Jesus, what is this all about? Even when I went to see it in the cinema in October there, that's the first time I saw it in the cinema, Scream 1, just seeing that title card come up after the opening credits, I just got goosebumps. It was unbelievable. So that is my ranking for the openings of the Scream movies. As you can see, it's slightly different to my rankings for the entire movies as well. But what do you think, guys? Does your ranking for the movies differ from your ranking for the opening? As always, leave your comments down below, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.